I've been playing Fire Emblem and Engage for a little while now, and I want to give my first impressions of the game before I finish it. Right now I'm on Chapter 10. I know a lot of people probably already got a lot further than that, and there are full reviews on YouTube already, but I have a job so I can't really play it all day, plus I'm working on videos and that takes time out of my day too. So far I've been enjoying it. There are some things I don't like, but the positives definitely outweigh the negatives. Some of the negatives might get better as the game progresses, and I'm planning on doing a review when I finish it, so it will be interesting to see how it compares to my thoughts right now. Let's start off with things I like about the game. My favorite thing about the game so far is the combat. It's much more similar to the classic Fire Emblem games, but there's also new mechanics that make it feel refreshing. Units move and attack in a much more classic Fire Emblem way. All foot units have a base movement of 4, which I really like because it makes the Knight class a lot more viable. The Knight's low movement has always been a hindrance to it, but now it can keep up with other units, which makes it much more useful on maps that aren't just defense. I also like that the units in this game have less movement than in previous titles. I feel like this makes it a lot more balanced because units can't just go across the whole map. I also tend to like smaller maps, which this game definitely seems designed around so far. The way units attack is also more like classic Fire Emblem. The main thing that's been changed are the archers. In Fire Emblem Three Houses, archers had a very long range and bows were very good weapons. Units were able to attack further as well as up close with skills, making any other ranged weapons obsolete to bows. In Engage, archers function much more like their classic counterparts. They aren't able to attack up close or at further range without a special weapon. This makes other ranged weapons just as viable as bows. You're also encouraged to use the different types of ranged weapons because the classes are locked to certain weapons, similar to classic Fire Emblem titles. This brings me to the next thing I like about Engage, the classes. In Three Houses, you were free to build the character however you wanted. Pretty much any unit could use any weapon. This did allow for more freedom when making builds, but I think I like the more classic way of weapons being locked to classes. I feel like this makes the characters feel more unique because they can only use certain weapons. I also think it's more satisfying using units locked to weapons because when I have the freedom to use any weapon available to me, I usually end up changing what weapon I want to use, and then I have to change the build around that weapon. Then I've invested time into stats that aren't important anymore and it ends up being a waste of time. In Engage, you don't have to worry about micromanaging all of your different skills, letting you focus more on gameplay. While we're on the topic of skills, I really like the new skill system. All of the units can inherit 2 skills and each unit has a personal skill. I feel like this makes it a lot more balanced than previous games where you could get a bunch of really powerful skills and easily make very broken builds. There is an exception to this though if you use emblem rings and certain bond rings, so on to the next topic, emblem rings. I like the emblem rings, they are a very powerful mechanic. I know some people were worried that they would be overpowered. I do think they make the game a lot easier compared to if you played without them, however I also feel like the game is a lot more fun with them. Even though I think it makes the game easier, I still think it's challenging, at least on maddening mode, because that's what I've been playing on. The emblem rings give you really good abilities which allows you to make really interesting builds. They also give you certain weapons and an engage attack to use once every time you engage. This gives an ace up your sleeve if you're in trouble or a really strong attack you can set up which feels really satisfying. The bond rings are also pretty strong. Some of them give you an extra skill which can be really helpful. Overall, I think they make the game better, so even if it's a little easier with them, I still think it's worth it. The last thing about the game I like is the graphics. I really like how the gameplay looks as well as the weapons, and the animations look very smooth. That's pretty much all the things I like about the game so far, so now let's move on to the things I feel neutral about. Really, the only things that come to mind for me is the Somniel and the story. I was looking forward to the Somniel, but I don't really like or dislike it. All of the things you can do get repetitive at a certain point and it becomes a chore after a while. I like the plaza area where you buy and upgrade weapons as well as the ring chamber, but other than that, all of the other areas are pretty repetitive. As for the story, I feel like it's pretty basic, so far just your average Fire Emblem story. I don't think Fire Emblem's strength ever really came from its story. I feel like instead it was the characters that made it enjoyable. As you progress and learn more about the characters, it feels more like an adventure with close friends, and to some extent this covers the weakness of having a basic story. That's it for what I feel neutral about, so now let's move on to what I dislike about the game so far. There are 2 things that I dislike. The first one is picking up items. I don't want to walk around a map picking up stuff to then go to the Somniel to pick up more stuff. It is really boring, but if I don't do it, I would miss out on a lot of rewards. It just feels very tedious. I feel like a better way of doing things would be to just give you all of the rewards after a battle instead of having to walk around, and as for the Somniel, I think if they put items closer that would help, or if there was a spot to claim all of the items from the orchard and animals that would also help. Moving on to the other thing I dislike, which are the characters. So far, the character writing has been pretty weak. I do not actively dislike any characters, but they all just feel kind of bland. I heard that the character writing in Engage wasn't as good as previous games, but so far it seems like it has some of the worst. That might change as the story goes on though, but so far all of the character supports are very boring. The only exception to this is Yunaka. Yunaka's supports so far have only hinted at her past, which makes me actually want to learn more about her while the other characters just have tea or something. I'm hoping it gets better as the story goes on because one of my favorite things about Fire Emblem are the characters, and as I said before, it covers the weaknesses of the story. Overall, I've been enjoying the game. It's a lot of fun, even if there are some downsides to it. I definitely think it's one of the better games so far. I'm gonna have to play it all the way through to give it a fair judgment, though. If you like this video, subscribe, like, and hit the notification bell, and stick around to see the full review. I don't know when I'll be able to make it, but look forward to it.